All relationship models, regardless of their level of complexity, are composed of two basic fundamental structures: reinforcing structures and balancing structures. Now, I've already done another video on reinforcing structures, so in this video I'd like to talk about balancing structures, and to do that I'd like to use as an example filling a bathtub, which is only slightly more interesting than watching paint dry. But if I start out with a bathtub, which is not full, but the goal that I have is to have a full tub, the difference between the two of those is a gap. Because what I really want is a full tub, and I don't have a full tub. And that difference is some amount. Now, notice that here I have a adds to same relationship. The full tub and gap are not things that accumulate, they're just values, so that this relationship is changing in the same direction, so that if I increase this value, the gap gets larger. If I decrease this value, the gap gets smaller. Whereas the relationship between the bathtub and the gap is an opposite relationship, because if I increase the value of the bathtub, the level of the water, the gap gets smaller, and if I decrease it, the gap gets larger. So it's an opposite relationship. It's not an adds to relationship because it's not adding to the stock, it's the stock's influence on some other variable. Now, that gap actually influences me or someone else to adjust a faucet position, because I actually want to add water to the tub so that I can fill it up. And this relationship is also the same, because faucet position is also not something that accumulates. So once I change the faucet position, it actually results in a water flow, and the water flow adds to the bathtub. If I open the faucet more, there's a greater flow of water, which adds to the bathtub more readily. And if I close down the faucet to any amount less than completely off, there's still a water flow that adds to the bathtub, so that where this is a same relationship, this is an adds to relationship with some delay, because it takes time for the water to flow and actually fill the tub. So that the adds to is different from the instantaneous relationship because of the nature of stock, something that accumulates, increases or decreases over time. And so I have adopted this notation simply to aid in understanding, because it's really the relationships vary depending upon whether or not the relationship is to or from a stock as opposed to a variable. Now, this relationship itself is a balancing relationship, because the whole intent of this structure is to reduce this gap to zero, so that when the amount of water in the bathtub reaches the full tub level, the gap becomes zero, and the faucet's closed and there's no more water flow. So that the labeling for this is full tub, because that is actually the goal that's being sought. And as I continue to say, that the nice thing about Kumu is that if there's any potential for ambiguity, you can add comments to elements or connections or to loop labels. This loop label has got a rather extensive description of how this loop operates. And what I said, it's a goal-seeking structure, and balance is something that results from the interaction of the elements, because none of the elements alone produce a characteristic called balance. It's what happens because of the nature of the relationship of the elements, and it becomes a goal-seeking structure. And as I've said before, any relationship diagram that's not documented, I consider to just be POS. And I inflicted them upon the world for a long time without a means of understanding them, simply because of the things that I didn't do to help people understand what I thought the model was trying to surface as an understanding. So in a next section, I'll talk about some guidelines for actually developing relationship models in a way that they're well constructed and which adds to other people's potential for understanding what the model is intended to convey. And later on, I'll talk about how to do storytelling with them so that it really helps other people understand the implications of those relationships. Now, note that this is part of an undertaking for, and it's all connected about understanding relationships and their implications to develop better approaches to solving problems. And there's a link to this structure in the notes section of the video. So see you in another video soon. Bye.